Okay, we're live.
All right, live finally. All right, it is Endgame Live. We're about 2 hours before kickoff, and we're here every single week of the NFL season to help with start sit questions. Hopefully, we got a lot, guys. Just start firing away in the comments. Any question you have about your lineups for Week 10, which is about to start. So we're gonna go over quickly, as we always do, who is in, who is out, who's back, and some of the other intangibles, things you have to worry about, like weather. All right. And then some of the questionables. I know we're going to get a lot of questions about those guys who are 50-50 that we don't even know until game time who's going to play. But you know what? We'll tell you where we're at with them right now, talk about how we have them ranked. So fire away all those questions. Like I said, getting queued up. Let's go over first the good news. Who's back? Nick Chubb is back after several weeks on the shelf. And it's not a bad spot either. He gets a pretty good matchup with Houston. Now, I know a lot of talk about Kareem Hunt. You're probably going to be more worried about Hunt than Chubb. I'll just kind of, spoiler alert, start them both. Okay. But yeah, Chubb is back. And also Miles Sanders missed about a month. And he is back. Of course, he's an automatic must start. I think you probably knew that, though. Any running back with a pulse these days is pretty much a must start. All right. Now, who is in? We know that there were some questionable tags heading into this week. Some guys that not too sure. And of course, not just injuries, but COVID. Ben Roethlisberger, there was some question early in the week. He's fine. He's cleared. He's in. Some worry maybe about the knee. Think, well, maybe he's not 100% because of that injury that forced him to leave last week. We haven't heard anything about setbacks. I think it's more of a discomfort thing with him, but he didn't seem to complain during the week of practice. So roll him out if you usually do. And his receivers, don't worry too much. And again, also a pretty good matchup for him in Cincinnati. Kenyon Drake, and I know that, Chris, you're a big fan, so you're glad to see Kenyon Drake back. Just slightly sarcastic there. But Kenyon Drake, he is playing then. Is that right? He's going to be splitting time with Chase Edmonds, as we all feared.
I mean, I guess it's still a game time decision, but it seems like he's trending to playing. I still prefer Edmonds big time over Drake. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical expert, but from the ones that I follow on Twitter, they've all said there's a high chance of re-aggravation, a high chance of ineffectiveness. I mean, we've seen other high ankle sprain injuries this year, Christian McCaffrey, that don't heal this quickly. So I feel like Arizona may be rushing him back. So I do. There is some risk there. I also think that even if he is active, Edmonds will still get the bulk of the work. So I like Edmonds a lot in this matchup, even with Drake back.
Yeah, and that's the question, is really not, is Drake, somebody you're going to plug and play? You probably shouldn't, because were you really playing him beforehand? I know he had that one huge game because of that huge run toward the end, but he had been a big bust all season. We know that, right? So it's not like, oh yeah, I can put Kenny Drake back in my lineup. It's more so, okay, how does this affect Chase Edmonds? Like you said, he's still the pass catching back. He's still the more efficient back. And this game, which a lot of people think could be the highest scoring game of the week, Buffalo, Arizona, yeah, you want Edmonds in there. So this doesn't do anything. Like, he's still pretty solid RB2, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. And yeah, we both, as usual, don't advise starting Drake. But I think that speaks more to their lack of depth at running back than anything. Like, they really want Kenny Drake out there. All right. Bad news here. Who's out? You already know Christian McCaffrey out for this week. As far as next week, we will see. But definitely get your Mike Davis in there again. Joe Mixon was doubtful, and now he's definitely out. Not a great matchup anyways. A lot of people probably were going to be scared to play him against the Steelers run defense. Gio Bernard, yeah, he's playable because he does some pass catching work. Of course, Mixon does too, but don't fear the Steelers defense, I'd say, too much, because again, they have been prone to giving up big plays at times, and they haven't shut down every running back they've played. I don't expect a lot from Gio Bernard, but he's definitely startable in this landscape.
Well, I tweeted this out. Why is everybody everybody can't wait to play Mike Davis against the Buccaneers, even though Davis didn't get you more than 11 points the last 3 games, but nobody wants to play Gio Bernard against the Steelers. What's the difference? Like, literally, what's the difference?
Recency bias, because Tampa Bay just looked
But you know what's
terrible
funny
last
about that?
week.
You could say recency bias, but Gio Bernard has had 2 strong games in his last 2 starts, whereas Mike Davis did nothing in his last 2 starts. I don't get this at all. This is just like, I'm not saying that like they're both must starts or they're both must sits. I'm just saying, if you like Mike Davis, you should just as much like Gio Bernard, because to me they're in the exact same situation. We know Gio Bernard's going to get a bunch of catches, bunch of dump offs. They're both going up against strong run defenses. So I just don't get this where everybody's like, yeah, you got to play Mike Davis. It's like, whoa, don't start Gio Bernard. Like, what is the difference? But
no, you're right. It's exactly in the exact same type of player. And I say not that they're the same build or anything. Davis is more of a tough runner, and Bernard has always been more of a pass catcher, but they play the same role, right?
Yeah.
That's what you're saying. And you're exactly right. I have them almost neck and neck in my rankings for running back. They're actually 14 and 16 right now. I won't tell you who's.
That's more like it should be, where these people are like, oh, Davis is a top 10 running back and Gio Bernard's like outside the top 20. I'm like, why?
Those people are the ones who remember Mike Davis from the first 5 games being a monster, right? But not the last couple of games. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Bad news, especially for me, my Chris Carson shares, which I have a lot of, way too many of. He's out again. They're making us sound really optimistic for next week, which doesn't help me this week. So more DJ Dallas, because also Carlos Hyde is out. Alex Collins is active for what that's worth. But yeah, more DJ Dallas. He's the same as he has been, a little more touchdown dependent. But I mean, this could be a high scoring game too. David Montgomery is going to be out. And so, I mean, really, Chris, is there any Bears running back we would want to even take a sideways glance at? I know I kind of said this on Twitter that Ryan Nall might be the one who has the most value because we saw him get the touches. Everyone's all over Cordero Patterson as if he's ever done anything as a running back. I don't know. What's your take on? Oh, yeah. Let's not forget Lamar Miller. He's going to come back and revive his career today.
I mean, I'm rolling out Ryan Nall in our flex league because I really don't have any other choice. I have like 6 players on bye and 4 guys on IR. So my roster is pretty decimated this week. It is a good matchup, right? It is a good matchup against Minnesota. So there is that, but certainly there's risk for all these guys. Like, you got to be pretty desperate to roll out with any of these guys.
And that's it. I mean, any of them, you're rolling the dice. I'm not Kip Lamar Miller, not anything against him personally, but I'd like to see him on the field first. I think Nall's the safe play there. So, but none of them are actually safe. But I don't think Patterson's all of a sudden going to have a monster game. So now I do think Kalen Ballage is just going to go nuts. Justin Jackson is on IR, and it was just weird this early in the week. I had Ballage as one of my top waiver wire pickups, and they put him back in the practice squad, and then Justin Jackson was going to practice. And then all of a sudden later in the week, they did the opposite. I think just to confuse people, Justin Jackson all of a sudden is not only missing this week, but he is on IR, and Ballage is active and he's on the roster. So I know Joshua Kelly's still there. I was a Kelly fan early in the season. I'm completely off now. I mean, everything I've seen is the worst of what we feared from coming out of college. He just can't break tackles. And Ballage, I'm not a huge fan based on what I saw as a Dolphin fan when he was in Miami, but maybe.
Yeah, my fear this week is Tremont Pope is back too. So I fear that this is going to be a 3-headed monster, and who knows if Pope goes out there and breaks off a couple big runs, does Pope get the bulk of the work? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just staying away from this backfield.
Yeah, it's still a lotto ticket either way. You have to be desperate, to try it. But hey, who knows? 2020. And then Kenny Golladay out again. We already knew that was going to happen. Very sad that Alan Lazard will not come back. It was such a great matchup this week, and I'm such a Lazard fan, but they're holding him out again this week. Keep stashing him. Devontae Freeman out, some more Wayne Gallman. Any other last-minute breaking news that we know about ins or outs?
I don't believe so. I haven't seen anything come across, so I think that's pretty much it for the injuries. We do have some weather games again, though, unfortunately.
Yeah, we'll keep you informed if anything happens while we're live. But weather, we know 2 weeks ago was a huge factor, especially that Cleveland game where they did nothing against the Raiders because the winds were so high. So all those waiver wire pickups amounted to nothing. Houston and Cleveland, guess what? Same team, same situation. 25-mile-per-hour winds, sustained winds with gusts up to, is that right? Did you type this right? 50 miles per hour? 50?
That is right. It could be worse than that Raiders game, which is unfortunate because I had Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks, and Jarvis Landry as must starts this week. This was supposed to be, I think this game opened with Vegas with like a 52 or a 53 point total, and it's down to like 47 or 46 because of the weather.
That tells you something. Vegas, they know what's up, right? When that line moves that much, you have to pay attention, right?
Yeah. So I still like Fuller, Cooks, and Landry. I don't have them as must starts anymore. I have them as, if you don't have better options, you're fine. But if you have better options, play them. And I know we both like Austin Hooper a lot this week as a potential streaming tight end option. I still do like him just because who else are you going to play, really? But also because the wind doesn't really affect those short passes as much as the deep passes. So I think you're still okay if you have Austin Hooper. But I would downgrade Fuller, definitely Fuller, and then Landry and Cooks to some degree as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking. A guy like Landry and Hooper maybe won't be as affected, although I think what we have to be worried is that Cleveland just isn't going to pass the ball right as much to both teams. But especially now that they have Chubb back, it just might be, hey, let's just control the ball all game long, keep Deshaun Watson off the field. And then Houston, the good thing is, I guess, from a fantasy perspective, they're probably going to have to pass whether they like it or not because David Johnson's out. They're very thin at running back. They have basically just Duke Johnson and now CJ Prosise, who they elevated from the practice squad. And both of them are basically pass catching backs, but it might be a little more conservative. So Fuller, you don't necessarily bench him, but he's going to go down a peg. And then, guys like Rashard Higgins, I wouldn't start him anymore, where you might have thought about it if you had to. Early. Jacksonville, Green Bay, again, a lot of potential for points there, especially on the Packers side, really just on the Packers side. Not as strong winds there, but gusts up to 30 miles per hour. Do you think this maybe becomes all Aaron Jones versus James Robinson?
I mean, it could. It certainly could, but they're both terrible run defenses. I don't think, again, I think Aaron Jones, to me, obviously anything can happen on a given week. But he looks like the lock of the week as far as running backs go, because you got to think Green Bay is going to have control of this game. They're a huge favorite. It's a terrible run defense. So he looks like the lock of the week. My only concern with James Robinson is if they're down 3 scores, how much does James Robinson get the ball at that point? Because that is a potential outcome here. Now, maybe the wind helps keep Green Bay's offense a little more under control and keeps the game a little closer. I don't know, but they're both good starts.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I can see Aaron Jones, to me, I have him as my number 2 player overall behind only Dalvin Cook, who has to be number 1. But yeah, I think it's going to be a lot more Jones. And I actually don't mind Jamal Williams in this game either. If you need a running back like as a 3rd or 4th option, which most of us do. And then I wouldn't knock Rodgers down too much. But again, a guy like MVS, you thought, well, he might be, flexible because of this matchup. That maybe this definitely knocks him down, I would say. So, I wouldn't move too much fantasy wise, except for maybe a little more down on Chark. But again, he just might see so many passes just because they have to. Just are those going to connect? And then Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, we've talked about that. 15 to 20 mile per hour winds, not too bad, but there could be gusts up to 50. Does this move the needle for you in any way?
A little bit, but not really. Not as much as the other two. I'm really high on Pittsburgh's passing game because the Bengals are without, I think, 2 of their top corners. So they basically, they're starting a bunch of backups in the secondary. It might hurt those deep balls to like Claypool or Deontay Johnson. But other than that, I just feel like Pittsburgh isn't going to care. They might run again, but this could be another one of those games where, it could be a James Conner game because Pittsburgh could just be up 2 or 3 scores. Although with Pittsburgh, unlike Green Bay with Pittsburgh, we've seen, we saw it last week against Dallas, they will play to the level of their competition, right? They'll get in those big games against those tough teams and look like Super Bowl contenders, and then they'll play Dallas and fall behind by 2 scores. So they play to the level of their competition. So this game could stay close just because of that.
Yeah, this actually should be a James Conner day, right? Because Cincinnati's defense is much worse against the run than the pass anyways. Now with that situation, obviously the injuries, you think Pittsburgh and Ben, but then you got to consider Ben Roethlisberger's kind of banged up with the knee, right? And the wins. So this really should be a Conner day. But of course, we said that last week. It didn't happen. But I'll put my money on the fact they'll give him the ball more this week and that they won't fall behind somehow to Cincinnati. But you never know. All right, so that does it for our updates. It's time for the questions, guys. Right now, if you have any questions at all about anything related to lineup, start, sit, whatever you have, hit us with it, and we'll do our best to answer. Are we ready?
All right, so we got a couple questions from Nate Ledwith. Here's a trade question to start. So let's start with the start sit question. Would you start Reed, Logan Thomas, Kyle Rudolph, or Taysom Hill? Which, by the way, we didn't talk about it, but Irv Smith was a late out yesterday, so that's why Kyle Rudolph is a potential streaming option.
That's true. Irv Smith is out, and not a lot of people starting him. I'm big on Irv Smith. I picked him up in a couple of leagues, so of course he's out. Rudolph is interesting in this matchup because we talked about it last week with Johnny Smith that Chicago locks down wide receivers. They're a lot more generous to tight ends. So Rudolph is in a standard league, I'd say more interesting. So than the PPR, I don't know how much he'll get targeted. I'm a fan of Logan Thomas in general, but Detroit is really tough against tight ends. So those guys are kind of neck and neck. And then who's the other options?
Jordan Reed, which I know you're not going to pick him. or Taysom Hill, which is interesting. Is Taysom Hill, is he listed as a tight end somewhere?
I thought he lost that eligibility, after last year. But that's interesting to me. If there's a league or, somewhere where he qualifies at tight end, I wouldn't start
play him, honestly. If there's a league where he qualifies as tight end, I'd probably play him because he's going to get like 6 carries. He might throw a pass. He might catch a pass from Drew Brees.
That's true. He's always streamable in that sense, not a quarterback, but at tight end. Is that who you would pick then?
If he's listed as a tight end in your league, I would probably pick him over those guys. But look, all those guys come with tons of risk. So give me the guy who they're going to bring in on like 3rd and short, who they might bring in at the goal line for a potential goal line touchdown. He might, like I said, he might throw a pass. He might catch a pass. I think he would be my pick if he somehow has tight end eligibility. If not, I think I got to go with.
It's close.
I know it's a tough matchup, but I think I'm going to go with Logan Thomas just because I feel like he's going to be more involved. Rudolph is a sneaky option, but he's really touchdown dependent to me.
Yeah, and again, I have these guys right next to each other. I bumped Rudolph up a couple of spots when Irv Smith was out, but not enough to be quite there starting status. So I would probably have to go Logan Thomas, but Rudolph is right there for me. So I guess that's kind of a gut feel.
Okay. They asked a trade question. And since we did have our trade video this week, maybe we should address it. So he wants to know if he messed up. So he traded Kupp, Fulgham, and Chark for Michael Thomas in full PPR.
3 for 1?
Yeah.
Well, and then to answer that, it depends. Well, who else you got? Because if you're trading away those 3 receivers and you're getting one back, I'm assuming you have pretty good.
Receivers. So he said his other receivers are Devontae Adams, T. Higgins, Jamison Crowder, Jalen Reagor, and Antonio Brown.
He only has to start 2 receivers. And you got Michael Thomas and Devontae Adams. That's a pretty good duo. Kupp hasn't had an amazing season. Fulgham, I think, is going to start to kind of go down. So I don't think that's messing up. Again, it kind of depends how many players out of those you need. If you only really need 2 and you can go with Adams, Thomas, I think that's fine.
Yeah, it really, this to me really comes down to what Michael Thomas are we going to get? Because we've only seen Michael Thomas healthy in 2 games, and he hasn't performed well in either game, right? I don't know if people, I think, forget in week 1, everybody was like, what happened to Michael Thomas? Right? He had like 50 yards or something, 5 catches for 50 yards. And then he had something similar last week. So it depends. If Michael Thomas becomes the Michael Thomas of last year, then yeah, I like that trade for you. If not, but you got to roll the dice, right? You're trying to win. You're not trying to finish 4th or 5th. You're trying to win. So I like that trade as a potential league winning trade.
And that's exactly right. Well, okay. At this point, we'll talk about it. We'll probably do some more trade videos. The trade deadlines are ending pretty soon, but just in general, talk about what are you playing for? You're playing for the playoffs to win, right? So what's going to win you in the playoffs? Having 3 receivers that you could plug and play, or having one guy who's maybe a top 10 receiver? You want to build your best optimal lineup, right? And so, having 2 kind of wide receiver 2 type guys, that's not going to help you as much as having one who's a wide receiver 1. So, as long as Michael Thomas stays healthy, I think that's probably the best move.
Yeah, and then Nate did just say that Taysom Hill is indeed listed eligible as a tight end in ESPN leagues. Wow. Yeah, I would definitely be rolling him out then.
ESPN. Okay, well, that's the problem. See, I don't play ESPN leagues. So.
Yeah, me neither. All right, Zach Wilkins asks, RB2, Lindsey, Fournette, Singletary or Hasty? Ooh.
Okay, so for me, this is actually a surprising no-brainer. I'll let you answer first, though.
Well, to me, Singletary and Hasty, I'm out on those guys. So it's between Lindsey and Fournette. Both have very good matchups this week, and both are kind of in like timeshares. I guess Fournette. I don't know. I don't feel very strongly about either of those guys over the other. I feel fairly confident about both. I mean, maybe Fournette just because he's going to be more involved in the passing game.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, I'm strongly Fournette, and not that he's necessarily going to have a monster game, but like you've been saying, and Carolina is one of those defenses you want to play running backs against. We see Fournette is trending as far as touches up every week. They want him to be they got him for a reason, right? So it doesn't matter that Ronald Jones had those 100-yard games in the middle of the season. It doesn't matter. Fournette's been hurt. He's back. He's healthy. He's their RB1. Period. Doesn't matter who starts the first series. Fournette is their guy. They're going to give him more and more touches, I think, as the season goes on. He's getting all the pass catching work over Ronald Jones. And even though they might not be behind in this game, although they could, we saw what happened last week. He's got the floor to me, and he's got the ceiling, because I think Ronald Jones is going to be so limited. So against Carolina, yeah, it's Fournette for me. I have him top 20 back. Lindsey's not a bad start, but again, I'm just not crazy about that Denver backfield, period, especially they keep falling behind. Neither one of those guys is going to really, get enough touches necessarily.
Yeah, I don't know, because I mean, I know this because my wife needed like 5 points from Fournette last week and she got it. But watching the game, and it's like the first series, it's Ronald Jones. The second series, it's Ronald Jones. The third series, it's Ronald Jones. And I'm like, did Leonard Fournette fumble in practice and now Bruce Arians has benched him or what? And then it wasn't until, I think then he played like a series. They went 3 and out. He never touched the ball. And then it wasn't until they were down like 2 or 3 scores that he was in there all the time. Right.
Yeah.
Because I do have some concern with Fournette that like if Ronald Jones starts and breaks off some big runs because it is Carolina and is looking good, does Leonard Fournette just sit there on the sidelines for most of the game and not get work? I mean, look, I'm not strongly like play Lindsey over Fournette. I just don't feel great about either, really, because they're both, splitting carries. And they both have good matchups this week. So I can make a case for both. Yeah, it's very, very close for me.
Yeah, it's kind of close. Here's the other thing, though. The Raiders were a very generous run defense beginning of the year, but the last like 4 weeks, they've clamped down actually a lot more. So you look at the season totals for, rushing defense, the Raiders are still one of the worst. But if you compare the first 4 games to like the last 4 games, there's a big difference. So it's a little misleading in that sense. And then, I just, the way Denver's been playing, it's fall behind early and try to come back late, and that doesn't work in the favor of the running back. So
that's true. Okay, slide edge to Fournette. You got it, Zach. All right, Lewis. Okay, this is how do you? You're a teacher, so you can tell me how do you pronounce the U with the 2 dots over it? Is that a U? Is that a oo? Coopers?
It's like ooh.
Okay, Lewis Coopers. Hopefully, I pronounced your name right. If not, I apologize. Chark or Fournette? Okay, so this is one, by the way, guys. So when you ask questions, especially when you ask questions where it's like a running back and a wide receiver, we need to know PPR is standard or half PPR, because that's drastically going to change the way we feel, although maybe not in this case. So Chark or Fournette?
It does matter, because if it's non-PPR, that's obviously that just difference between running backs and wide receivers, period. You tend to favor the wide receivers. In this case, Fournette, has been used as a pass catching back, but actually this is a little tougher than I thought. I would say DJ Chark, no brainer, but what we just talked about with that game, and there's definitely risk because Chark is going to be shadowed by Jaire Alexander. And
hold on. Actually, I haven't heard the latest on him, but as of yesterday, he was doubtful to play.
Alexander's not going to play?
Well, I haven't heard that he's officially out yet. I might have missed it, but as of yesterday, he was doubtful, which usually means doubtful. Rarely do people play when they're doubtful.
Well, I heard he was banged up, like questionable, but I thought he was going to play anyways. But if he doesn't play, well, then it's easy. It's Chark.
Yes, I agree. Because of that, because Alexander is out and he won't draw that shadow coverage. Because even if unlike James Robinson, if they fall behind by 3 scores, that doesn't take Chark out of the game. That brings Chark into the game because he might get 10 targets and only catch 5 of them, but that's okay, especially if one's a touchdown, right? Or if one, you know what I mean? Like even if Luton's not very accurate, if he's force feeding them the ball because they're behind and he gets 10, 11, 12 targets, it's okay if he doesn't catch, if he only catches 50, 60% of them, because you can still have, right, 80 yards.
And that's probably what will happen. We think he'll get a ton of volume just because it will be behind. Of course, we don't know, but that's the assumption here. And that's what's been happening. That's the story of Chark's season. You see, he gets targeted a ton. He barely catches half of them, but who cares? For fantasy, he's putting up points. So, I mean, I don't know if it's going to be the same situation as last week where he gets a big play based on, the weather and all that. But still, I have to like Chark. And also, Chenault, remember, he's out for Jacksonville. Yeah. That's one less receiver. So I think Chark will get a ton of targets.
Yeah. So I think it's Chark over Fournette because of the situation this week. Sven 1FR Avila. Ayuk or Juju full PPR? This is I feel like this is a Pierre question. These are like your guys right here, right? Ayuk and Juju.
Juju's my boy. He will always be my boy after 2 years ago, not last year, but led me to a couple of championships 2 years ago. I love Ayuk this week, honestly, but I got Juju higher. I mean, he's going to get peppered with targets. You see that now he's becoming what we thought he might be coming into the season. Had that lull, but now he's fine. I got him top 15 this week. I have Ayuk just a little bit lower. Only thing is that now Kendrick Bourne is back, as far as I know, and unless something's changed. And so, I like them both, but I got Juju a little bit higher.
Yep, I agree. Juju a little bit higher, especially against, I don't know if I talked about it, but the Bengals secondary is really banged up right now. They're like, this passing attack should be very effective. And even if you are worried about the wind, Juju catches a short, 5 to 7 yard targets. Wind shouldn't affect those as much. So definitely Juju.
Yeah.
Then here's an interesting one from Colin Mapp. I actually really like this question because it is a tough decision. Gio or Edmonds?
That's pretty close. Again, similar players, similar situations. I'm not even factoring Drake, like whether he plays or not. That doesn't matter because this could be a high-scoring game. Edmonds will get most of the touches. Definitely a better defensive matchup for him. I still have Edmonds higher, so I would have to stick with Edmonds.
Yeah, I know. If Drake wasn't playing, this would for sure be Edmonds. And I know it's easy to get concerned about Drake, but like I said, I think Drake will be limited today. I don't think he's quite 100%. I don't understand why they're rushing him out, especially since they played Thursday night. They have a quick turnaround. I'm not really sure why. I could see this being one of those games where he's active but doesn't really play. Right. They just needed a body, so they just activated him, but he doesn't really play. So I still like Edmonds, although I do like Gio a lot. I'm a lot higher on Gio than a lot of people are this week, I've noticed.
Yeah, and again, both are decent options. They could come out with very similar numbers. But yeah, I still have Edmonds a little higher just because the projected over for this game. And just, by the way, of Dynasty owners out there, I think you can drop Eno Benjamin if you're stashing him because it's clear that he has no role in this team at this point. If they're not rolling him out there as the backup with Drake out, then just forget him.
All right, so Sven asked a similar question. I'm starting Antonio Gibson over Gio Bernard and Edmonds. I say yes to that. Do you agree?
Starting
Antonio Gibson over Gio and Edmonds.
Yep, so am I. I have Gibson actually probably way too high this week. I think I talked about him in a must start for running back. He's a guy I think he's going to get the ball a ton. I don't worry game script, taking him out against Detroit because it's not going to be like last week. So I've got him, top 10 running back. I think Gibson could have a huge week.
Yep, I agree. Good morning, Heath. He said, good morning, guys. And he also asked a few questions, so let's jump into them. So here's a quarterback one. Oh, here's where we're at. Here's a 2020 question if I've ever heard one. Cam Newton or Derek Carr?
That's a good question. They're really close for me. I have Cam Newton ahead just because of the rushing ability. He can always run for a score, run for some yardage. So it's not a great matchup, of course, for either one. But I'm going to lean Newton slightly.
Yeah, me too. I'm always going to take the guy who runs because he gives you a little bit of that safer floor. And like you said, he's basically their goal line back, right? Like every time they get down to the 1 or the 2, they just sneak it with Cam. They just run it with Cam Newton. So I think he gives you that potential for a touchdown on it with his legs.
And actually, I should ask too, because one of the guys that's questionable, and I think he's still just questionable, like we really don't know, is Damian Harris. Now, Damian Harris doesn't play. I bumped Cam Newton up maybe a spot or two, anyways. But if he's questionable, he's been banged up, left last week early, and has had injuries ever since he came into the league. I think he's still just questionable, right? We don't know, but
Yeah,
he might not play.
I haven't seen an update on him. Let me
I'm saying it says he's hopeful to play. Well, if
yeah,
you're hopeful, we know what hope is.
yeah, hopeful to play. Yeah. But even if he plays, is he going to get 15 to 20 carries if he's this? Probably not. So I definitely like Cam Newton. Then here's an interesting one: Noah Fant or Jimmy Graham?
Oh, for me, it's Fant every day. I'm a huge fan. So if he's playing and he's got even a decent matchup, I'm playing him. I know it's not a great tight end matchup for him, but yeah, I like the upside with Fant.
Yeah, I agree. I like Fant. And then he asked if Allen Robinson is playing. I haven't heard anything to the contrary. Have you?
He's another guy who's been questionable, and like a couple weeks ago, it was doubtful all the way up until the game time that he did play. So what I see here is he's officially questionable. So if that helps you, he's officially questionable. Um, he's the kind of player that, to me, you keep in your lineup for now. The problem, of course, is Monday night game. Now, if it's possible that you have Mooney or that you could add him because it's a more shallow league or whatever, you can pick up Mooney. I do it now and I put Mooney in, but there's not a whole lot of other options. The Vikings have no other receiver that's going to be available you can pivot to, right? Because they don't throw to anybody other than 2 receivers. And then do you really want to play Anthony Miller? Only if Allen Robinson doesn't play. So it's risky. That's the thing. It's very risky, but I don't get the sense that Allen Robinson's not going to play.
Yeah. Yeah, you can usually tell like when guys are trending towards not playing or playing because you get these like ominous, like, oh,
Yeah.
the Bears are hopeful he'll play, but they're gonna test him out and make sure he's okay, right? Like you get these really ominous things. When you don't really hear much about a guy, it's pretty likely he's gonna play, unless he's already been ruled out, of course. So Sven has an interesting thing. I mean, like so today apparently is Tyler Boyd's 24th birthday.
All right.
So we got the birthday narrative going for Tyler Boyd, right? It's his birthday. I've already talked about Tyler Boyd. I feel like I talk about Tyler Boyd every week. I expect a big game from Tyler Boyd. I'm not worried about the weather or anything. I do think he'll have a big day today. Plus, again, he catches those shorter to intermediate balls. So even if there's some wind, it shouldn't affect him as much. So yeah, I think Boyd has a monster day today.
Oh yeah.
If you have Boyd, you plan. All right, Stephen Hairston. Chark in bad weather. This is an interesting one too. Chark in bad weather or Parker or Evans full PPR.
All right, here comes. I was waiting for a Mike Evans question. You have to be down on him. I have him all the way down at wide receiver 30 for this week. So not Evans. Parker, it's hard for me to be completely objective here. I'm thinking it just makes too much sense that he wouldn't get at least 10 targets because Preston Williams is now on IR. They have no other wide receivers. They literally have no other wide receivers who are healthy besides Jakeem Grant, who's a kick returner. Antonio Callaway, he's on the active roster now. Parker has got to be targeted a ton, right? You'd think he would have to be. So it's hard for me not to think he could be one of the top scoring receivers this week. Not a terrible matchup because guys like Casey Hayward, and the Chargers, they haven't been the same this year. That secondary has been okay, but not great. So I don't know. What do you think? Because I feel like I kind of then do that. I overinflate the value of the Dolphins receivers, thinking they should be better, and then they aren't.
Yeah, but I feel like I do the opposite because I think, it's the Dolphins.
Yeah.
But to me, this is really close between Chark and Parker now with Alexander out. If Alexander was in, I agree with that. I'd say Parker 100%. But I could see Chark getting just as many targets as Parker.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess I'd rather play the guy that's attached to Tua than the guy that's attached to Luton. So Yeah, I'm gonna give
Right.
Parker. I'm gonna give Parker the slight edge here.
Yeah, so that's my thinking is who's got the better quarterback? It's going to be Parker. Who's going against the tougher defense? The Chargers would be the easier defense as far as against the passing game, but then without Alexander, that's where it kind of changes things a little bit. Who's going to have the more favorable game script as far as needing to pass? Probably the Jaguars. So I can see Chark getting more targets, but like I just said, Parker's got to get a ton of targets too. So I feel like he's going to be more efficient with his targets. So I got Parker a little bit higher still.
Okay. And then Heath followed up to what you said. The only person he could switch out for Robinson is Brandon Cooks. Now we talked about that weather. I'm a little nervous about the passing game for both teams in this game now with 30-mile-per-hour winds the whole game and 50-mile-per-hour gusts. I mean, it's going to be brutal. So I feel like 99.9% confident that Robinson is going to play. And it's a great matchup against the Vikings. Like he could go off for a monster game. So I don't think I would switch him out for a guy like Cooks personally. How about you?
Yeah, that's the thing. Against Minnesota, that's like a mouth-watering matchup. You think Robinson should just, eat there. So yeah, I don't get the feeling Robinson's going to miss, but I mean, you never know with injuries. That's the thing. And you're taking a calculated risk. So if you're really worried and you feel like, that might make the difference between winning and losing, Cooks is not a bad play. But, you're talking about top 10 upside versus, somebody who may be in the, wide receiver 2 range. But
yeah, I'm leaving out Robinson. I haven't heard anything to make me think he's not playing. So, call him out. If I pick Edmonds over Gio, I could put Gio at flex. But then he'd have to choose between Parker or Fulgham at wide receiver 2 in standard scoring.
Oh, in standard scoring. Okay. Well, honestly, if it's standard scoring, I probably wouldn't put Fulgham in there anyways. So I'd rather have Parker. I feel better chance for a touchdown, yardage wise. Fulgham had a couple of big games, but again, we got Miles Sanders back. You got maybe Alshon Jeffrey playing, and I just don't know that he's going to come out with a monster game. And he's relying on a lot of his target share and his, his catch totals. So, yeah, I'd probably do that. I'd probably put Edmonds, Gio, Parker.
Yeah, I agree. So here's a question from me to you: PPR, Gio or Fulgham in your flex?
Gio or Fulgham? I'd go with Gio.
Yeah.
Man. Mm-hmm. And I'm usually, and I feel almost guilty for always being more down on Fulgham all year. Like I don't hate the player, and it's a great story, and he's legit. But realistically, look at this offense. It's not the best offense, right? And it's gonna be a low scoring game, I think, anyways, with the Giants. So I'm not feeling him this week.
Yeah, I might switch to that. Who has the higher ceiling?
Who, Gio or Fulgham?
PPR. Who has a higher ceiling? Who has a better chance to boom?
I mean, you'd say, well, Gio's not going to have a huge game because it's against the Steelers. I just feel like the touchdown upside is a lot more with Gio. So if you're talking about PPR, well, Gio's going to get his share of receptions too. So I don't know. To me, it's Gio.
Okay. All right. If I lose, it's your fault.
Yeah.
Right? Isn't that how it works?
I gave you the win last week in our flex league. So by 0.2.
That's right. Because people asked us about that. So those of you who asked about our matchup, I won by literally 0.22. It was crazy. And we were the second and third highest scorers in the league. I think one team outscored me by like half a point or a point. There were 3 teams that scored over 160 in our league, and then nobody else, I think, even broke 150. And you and I played each other and lost by 0.22. That was pretty brutal. And the worst part is it kept me in playoff contention and pretty much eliminated you. And now I have like 6 guys on bye and 4 guys on IR, and I'm fielding together this like band-aided team, and I think I'm playing against the highest scorer in the league, so I'm probably going to get eliminated this week anyway. So it was like all for naught.
The best thing is you got Christian McCaffrey back for 1 week just so he could do that, just to lead you to victory, and then go back on the injury. So
yeah, then go. It's like I need you to get into the playoffs. But anyways, All right, let's see. Okay, it's Boyd's 26, not his 24. Sven coming with the birthday knowledge. That's pretty nice.
Hey, we talk revenge narrative all the time, and it doesn't pan out usually most of the time. But the birthday narrative, there might be something there, right? A lot of guys go off on the big days, right?
Yeah. All right, let's get to some questions that were asked on comments on videos. Who would you start in a standard league? Joshua Farrell asked this one. Who would you guys start in a standard league? Goddard or Jimmy Graham?
I think it's got to be Goddard, just because that team, they're going to focus on the tight end more. Graham is not a bad matchup here, obviously with Minnesota, but I feel like this is where the wide receivers can go off, and they won't need to go to Graham quite so much. Graham is interesting. I mean, he's not a bad start, but to me, it has to be Goddard. He's just higher ceiling.
Yeah, I agree. It's got to be Goddard. He's like a top 10 easy tight end for me every week now, if not top 8. Stephen Hairston, who's on the video, but he asked this question on one of our must start videos: Hooper or Goddard full PPR? And he did mention that the weather may be really bad there in Cleveland.
That's a close one. I'm right next to each other. Yeah, the weather might be the deciding factor. I actually still had Goddard higher just a little bit, but yeah, that wouldn't change anything. So I'll go Goddard.
Yeah, it's really close between these two guys. I still like Hooper a little bit more, just because I don't know why. Just because I guess what we saw from him before he got hurt. I'm not as worried about the weather for Hooper, but it's super close for me between these two guys. So one of those situations.
Houston is the worst defense.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Houston's terrible against tight end. So it's gonna be one of those situations where you got to pick one, you got to bench the other, and just hope the guy you bench doesn't go off. Sucks, but that's how it goes sometimes. Yeah. All right. Jason King asked, start 2 between Melvin Gordon. This is not a fun one. You're not going to enjoy this one. Start 2 between Melvin Gordon, Ronald Jones, Damian Harris, and Wayne Gallman.
Do I have to? Man. All right. So I would have, if I knew he was playing for sure, honestly, I would still have Damian Harris highest, just because he's been the most efficient. And I know that's probably a bad move, but I still feel like Damian Harris has the highest upside just of what we've seen he can do. Man, Melvin Gordon, I wasn't high on him coming into the season. I'll have him in one league, and that's where I really felt kind of dirty taking him, but just because, and that's our flex league, I felt like there was only a running back left that actually had that kind of upside. And yeah, I'm almost completely out on Melvin Gordon the rest of the season. Ronald Jones, I have him pretty low too this week. And what was the fourth one?
Wayne Gallman.
I would put Wayne Gallman over those last two guys I just mentioned. So I have Damian Harris, Wayne Gallman, and then Gordon and Jones.
Yeah, I think I agree. I could make a case for Melvin Gordon just because, I mean, I guess you're right. The matchup hasn't been as good lately against the Raiders, so maybe not. So, yeah, I mean, it's just a terrible situation to have to be in. But I think I agree with you. Okay. Vu Nguyen. Again, apologies if I mispronounce your name. This is an interesting one. I'm going to assume PPR because that's really the only way you'd be playing. T. Higgins or Swift?
That's interesting. I would probably not go with Swift just because, I'm just not going to go with the Lions running back if I don't have to. And then Washington's got a, pretty good defensive line. I don't feel like it's going to be very high scoring. I don't know. I'm down on Detroit. I really think Washington's going to win this week. So I would go Higgins, even though you think on paper the matchup is not great, but Higgins has had big games. And if they fall behind, they're going to have to pass the ball more, so Higgins is a little riskier, but I would still go with him.
Yeah, I like Higgins. I like the Bengals receivers. I know you look at, it's the Steelers, but Steelers much better against the run than they are against the pass. I know the weather could be an issue here because Higgins does get those deeper routes, but I still like him more than Swift, who it could be the Swift day or it could be the Adrian Peterson day, like you just said, right? Or Swift could sit there and get you like 5 touches, and that's all he gets you. So Yeah.
If you want to talk about the revenge narrative, this should be it, because Peterson against Washington, right? His last
Sure.
team. And I know, and I heard there was something in the media this week about how he's going to prove them wrong, that he still has something left. Like, whatever, okay, like nobody cares. But maybe he gets going. Who knows? But still, I don't trust any Lions running back. So
Yeah, same. Vincent Ballon, again, apologies. Duke Johnson or Deontay Johnson. So the two D Johnsons in PPR. Duke Johnson or Deontay Johnson? Full PPR.
that's a close call. It's hard for Deontay Johnson to kind of be in the circle of trust, just because he's left so many games and back and forth and various injuries. And then, Juju's kind of stepping back up. So I'm going with Duke Johnson for this week.
Yeah, as crazy as it is for me to say, I think Duke Johnson as well. I mean, I know they act like CJ Prosise, but come on. Duke Johnson's probably going to get like 80% of the touches. And he's safe even if like they fall behind, which I don't think they will. He's safe because he's going to get receptions out of the backfield too. So I like Duke Johnson.
And you know what? He's going against Cleveland. You know what that means? It's a revenge game.
Another revenge. I feel like every week's a revenge game. What's going on here? Like all these teams.
Yeah.
Angel Perez or Angel Perez. Full PPR pick 2. Gio, Darrell Henderson, Chase Edmonds, DeAndre Swift. I definitely know where I'm going here. How about you?
Well, I definitely know it's not Swift. We talked about that. Just the name of Darrell Henderson is just going to constantly be painful to me. Like, why can't Cam Akers just play? Just let him play. But okay. Gio, I think, has got to be 1, right? Wait, did you say pick 2?
Yeah, pick 2.
Okay, so we got Gio, got Darrell Henderson,
Edmonds, Swift.
Edmonds. Yeah, I'd still have Edmonds and Gio.
Yeah, it's Gio and Edmonds for me. I still think Edmonds, like I said, I still think Kenny Drake's going to be standing on the sidelines. We're not going to see a lot of him. I don't think he's ready. Ankles, you don't want to mess around with that ankle and rush him back too soon. And then maybe they do, maybe they don't care. And then he is out for the season, right? So I do think it's a little too soon for Drake. I don't think he's going to be that involved. I think Edmonds is going to get the bulk of the work. And in this matchup, you got to roll with Edmonds. And then here's one I got today from Twitter. That's an interesting one from Franklin Grulon. He needs one of these wide receivers in full PPR. Godwin, Chark, Claypool, Jerry Jeudy, or Curtis Samuels.
One of those guys?
Yeah, like how do you have all these guys? But yeah, he needs one of them apparently.
Okay, same again. That was a lot of players.
Godwin, Chark, Claypool, Jeudy, Curtis Samuels.
This, this might surprise you, but I actually have Curtis Samuel ranked the highest of those guys this week. And not just because he had a monster last week, but going against Tampa Bay, yeah, that's not a good matchup on paper. But as far as individual matchups, their outside corners are 2 of the best, right? Jamel Dean has been great this year. Carlton Davis has been real good. But then you got Sean Murphy-Bunting in the slot. And without Christian McCaffrey, I feel like Samuel's going to keep touching the ball, a couple times in the backfield. He's going to have the easiest time. He's been the number 2 target behind Robbie Anderson. So I like Samuel in this matchup, assuming Tampa Bay doesn't roll over like they did last week. But, Godwin is tempting, but he's too risky. Chark would be the only one I might consider. But there's a lot of risk for the reasons we've already talked about too. So I actually have Samuel the highest.
All right. All right.
Who would you go with?
I went with Claypool, actually. But that was before I knew about the weather. Because the Bengals secondary is destroyed. And so I figured, he's going to catch a couple bombs. Now I'm a little concerned about Claypool. I'd probably go with Chark.
And that's the thing with Claypool. Last week I was wrong. It was probably one of my bigger misses last week is, a lot of who do you start against Dallas or which Pittsburgh receiver? And all of them, who are you going to start Connor? Okay. Well, obviously that game didn't turn out the way anybody thought, right? Pittsburgh, just kind of all let us down except for Juju. So I thought Claypool had a chance and he almost caught a touchdown, right? You saw that he was targeted in the end zone. He almost had a big play. But not that matters, but I feel like now I'm reversing course. I'm going to be a little less bullish on Claypool. just because I'm tempering expectations, especially this matchup. So, but Claypool could very easily, go for a big play. So
Yeah,
just a little more risky.
that is the thing about the Steelers this year is there's Big Ben is spreading the ball around. So it could be a Deontay Johnson week. It could be a Chase Claypool week. You know what I mean? It's like it's hard to trust any of these guys week to week. It's not like before where it's like, yeah, you play AB every week because he's going to get all the targets. It's like, maybe Chase Claypool is going to have a 10-target game, or maybe Deontay Johnson is going to have a 10-target game. So it's getting a lot harder to trust these guys week to week for sure. But I think now with Alexander out and knowing the weather, I would pick Chark. Would be my pick.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I say Claypool is kind of more boom bust, but then Chark is kind of more boom bust too. But he should definitely get more targets. So I would have Chark over Claypool, and then Curtis Samuel. I know it's not a guarantee there, but I guess that's just where that's what I'm feeling this week.
All right, and then Boo Nguyen asked another one. This is an interesting one. Would you consider starting Antonio Brown or DJ Moore over T. Higgins?
Yes, Antonio Brown is interesting. DJ Moore, no, I think we've got to be down on him. Especially based on the matchup, but also he's falling behind. He's like the third target there. Higgins is also kind of a guy we talked about. A lot of these rookies like Claypool is kind of more boom bust. Like he could have a monster game, he could disappear. So there's risk there. You're taking on a little bit less risk. I don't know. How do you see it?
I could make a case for starting Antonio Brown. I was encouraged last week by his usage in the first game. And there was one, I don't know if you were watching the game, which I don't blame you if you turned it off because it was horrible. But he threw Brady threw a deep pass to Gronk. He overthrew him. And Antonio Brown was running right there and he was open. He'd beat his man. And I'm like, if he just thrown that to Antonio Brown instead, that was probably a touchdown. It probably would have been a touchdown. So Antonio Brown, he didn't look like a guy who hasn't played football in a year and a half. He was right. He looked like he had just stepped off the field last week. He looked ready to go. So I could see him getting more involved this week for sure. Yeah, but I agree with you, DJ Moore. And it's always those weeks though when we're like, oh, don't start DJ Moore, that he takes a 5-yard a 5-yard little pass and he goes for 59 yards for a touchdown, right? It's like, oh, I should have played DJ Moore. But that's what you're banking on with him, so I can't start him. But I could definitely start Antonio Brown over T. Higgins.
No, and you can't start Moore because even though I know he had a big game against Tampa the last time, and that's the thing you're looking at, but that was a different situation. They had McCaffrey on the field. Samuel hadn't really been involved yet, and so I'm not going to look at that game and say, oh, he's going to do it again. It's really close between Brown and Higgins, honestly, but with Brown, like you said, last week you almost have to throw it out the window for Tampa Bay, right? What they did, because the game just got away from them. Brown looked good. I think he could get, healthy target. I don't know why he's still throwing to Gronk. Why is he throwing to Gronk anyways? He was he connected 1 out of 6 times or something like that. You have 3 of the best receivers in the league. Why are you throwing to Gronk? But
yeah. All right, Ari, man, some of these, I apologize in advance. Bookbinder, Chark or Thielen?
Interesting. Down on Thielen this week. Let's see how far down I put him. Maybe too far down. But no, it's a tough matchup. I got him down at wide receiver 24. So, yeah, I got Chark over.
Yeah, it's tough to say because Thielen he can get 2 short touchdowns or something, right? Yeah. But I know I'm benching Justin Jefferson this week. I think it's Chark too, especially with Alexander out. I think Chark's going to have a big game.
The thing is, you have to look at what Thielen's done the last 2 weeks against not the Bears defense, right? Against the Lions, right? Of all teams, Lions 38 yards, 2 catches. Against the Packers, 27 yards. Okay, so it's pretty clear he hasn't been effective for whatever reason. I know they haven't had to pass because Dalvin Cook's just running crazy, but still, Justin Jefferson is looking like their top receiver now. So against this defense, no.
Yeah. All right, here's a not very fun one. Nathan K asks, would you start Gus Edwards or Ryan Nall in a standard league?
I'm actually starting Gus Edwards in one league, and I'll tell you a true story. I have him in the same league where I have Nyheim Hines. on my bench. So I should have not started Gus Edwards probably, but again, didn't know that Hines was going to score 2 touchdowns. So yeah. And I also didn't know that Mark Ingram might be back this week when I put that in my lineup before Thursday. So that kind of kills it. But I don't know. Is Mark Ingram playing for sure? That's the question. Because if Ingram does play, even if he's not going to get many touches, yeah, I think you'd have to.
I haven't heard any updates on Ingram. I don't expect him to play, but I haven't heard that he's in.
Yeah, I kind of heard early, and then probably let me look it up right now, see if we can find anything. But been hearing that's kind of encouraging that thinking that he is going to play. Look, I don't even have him in my rankings. That's why. He's questionable, just like Kenyon Drake. It's questionable. These guys, they could be teasing that they're coming back and then they don't actually come back because coaches like to do that. Will it affect them? I don't know. Like Ingram is the kind of guy I think if he does play that they will get him some touches. Yeah, should be set to play.
Yeah, so that definitely. But here's the thing, like your other option is Ryan Nall. Like
right.
Gus Edwards, even with Ingram when Ingram was healthy, was out snapping him. So
right.
Does it hurt Edwards? Of course, because now instead of just him and Dobbins, it's him, Dobbins, and Ingram again. But Ryan Nall, we don't know what Ryan Nall's role is going to be. It's not like he just steps into an every down role, guaranteed, right? So I think I still got to play Edwards over Ryan Nall, especially in a standard league where we saw Edwards last week. They just kept pounding him at the 1 yard line, pounding them until he scored.
Right.
So Edwards is going to score. So in a standard league, I got to go Edwards.
Yeah, that's the thing with standard because you don't have to worry about who's going to catch more. Because Nall in PPR definitely would be Nall because he's going to get a couple of receptions and Edwards just doesn't. Yeah. Although he did get 2 last week, but yeah, in standard you could probably still go with Edwards. It's just I got him. I'm very disappointed. What I thought might be a good matchup for Edwards, now it's not looking like it's going to be as good. But
yeah. All right, John Zavala asks DJ Chark, DJ Moore, or Darnell Mooney full PPR?
Well, let me some Darnell Mooney this week. Do I have him ahead of DJ Chark though? No, because Chark's the number 1 guy and Mooney's still. Now, if Allen Robinson is ruled out, then yeah, I go with Mooney. But here's the problem: you're not going to know that before an hour from now because they're playing on Monday night. So I would still stick with Chark.
Yeah, I think you got to play Chark, even though I do really like Mooney this week. Yeah, Chark, he's in a good spot, so you can't bench him for Chark or for Mooney. RW asks, Lindsey or Moss for flex in a standard league?
That's close. That's close. You talked about Lindsey earlier. We haven't talked about Zach Moss because there's usually not much to talk about. He'll get a couple of receptions. He'll get some red zone work. I was actually surprised because I did research an article I wrote earlier this week that on red zone touches, how we can kind of overvalue them sometimes. Moss has a lot more touchdowns than Singletary, but their red zone touches are almost the same. It's not that Moss is really getting used that much more. It's just he's more efficient, and obviously he's better able to score. So you're really kind of hoping for a touchdown from Moss, basically, in this game, which is possible. With Lindsey, you're hoping that he's more effective as a runner, but we haven't really seen that, against the Raiders defense lately. So I feel like Lindsey is kind of just a slightly higher floor play. So that's why I have him a little bit ahead, because Moss, you're really just hoping for touchdowns, right?
That's interesting because I like Lindsey by a lot over Moss.
Okay.
He out-touched Melvin Gordon last week. Look, he's looked better than Melvin. Every week that they've both played, Lindsey's looked way better than Melvin Gordon. There's no way the Broncos coaching staff is obviously starting to give in and say, like, okay, we hand the ball off to Lindsey, he makes something happen. We hand the ball off to Gordon, he falls down for 2 yards. So, and Zach Moss, you just never know. He might get, it just might not be a game where they like. If this is a high-scoring shootout game, Zach Moss is going to be very, not involved much at all. He's going to need a touchdown really to save his day. So I like Lindsey a lot more than Moss, personally.
Yeah, I have Lindsey higher, not by a lot, but I do have Lindsey a couple spots higher because basically for Moss, that's what it is. You're hoping for touchdowns.
Yeah, exactly. You're just hoping for a touchdown. All right, Justin Credible, who, by the way, you're here every week, Justin. Appreciate you. Who's better, Troymaine Pope or Devin Singletary?
No, you can't trust Troymaine Pope. No, he's questionable going into this week. We don't know how much he's going to touch the ball. I really think he was put in there a couple weeks ago just to try to like light a fire under Kelly or Jackson. Well, it didn't happen. Kelly's still just completely ineffective. Jackson's on IR. That's why I'm probably too high on Balaj this week. But yeah, Troymaine Pope, that to me, I'm completely ignoring, that one game. He's a journeyman. He's a special teams guy. He's somebody who's not going to be a consistent performer. So, and then he's been banged up this week too. So I'm out on Pope.
Yeah, I'm not super high on Singletary, but I'm higher on Singletary than I am on Pope. That's for sure. All right. Then he also asks, right, Bears DST or Washington football team DST. So both good spots.
I got to go with Washington. I picked him up. I have one of my top defenses ranked this week. Actually, I probably have him ranked a little too high here. I have him as the top 5 defense going against Detroit. I know Stafford, I guess, is playing. If Stafford was going to be out, then that would have been way too obvious. But I still like Washington.
Yeah, I still like Washington. They're going to get lots of pressure on Stafford. Stafford takes lots of sacks. Yeah, they might score 20, 25 points, but that's okay. If they get some sacks and an INT or something, you're gonna be okay with that. Whereas, Kirk Cousins takes a lot of sacks and throws interceptions too, so they're both in pretty good spots here. But I agree. I think Washington is the play.
And the thing is, obviously, with the way Dalvin Cook's playing, they're going to keep it conservative. Right? You see, talk about Thielen hasn't done much. They did the smart thing. They're not passing the ball. They're giving the ball to Dalvin Cook as much as possible. Give it to Madison. So there won't be as many opportunities for the Bears. Even though the Bears are a great defense, Minnesota's offense has been rolling last couple of weeks, mainly because of Dalvin Cook. But also, you got to give some credit to Gary Kubiak. He's figured things out with the personnel he has. They're getting the tight ends more involved. That's why Irv Smith has been coming on. So, Minnesota's not, an automatic stream against like they were in the beginning of the season.
Yeah. All right, Navi Bagri. Again, apologies if I didn't get that right. Half PPR. Gio or Gallman. I think it's definitely Gio, right?
It's Gio. Gallman's not a bad play, but the upside is just
Gallman's gonna have to score a touchdown, I feel like, to get you anything this week.
Which he's been doing, 3 straight games, but it's not a guarantee. So
right. And then this is an interesting one for wide receiver, because I feel like on most weeks you would just say Jefferson, but Jefferson or Higgins?
And I had a question on Twitter about Jefferson earlier too. I'd still go Jefferson. I know we just finished talking about this bad matchup, but still Jefferson has shown, what he can do. It just takes one play. He's kind of like that AJ Brown type where, you never know if he could have a game like AJ Brown just had, but at the same time, he could easily turn it into a huge touchdown. So I wouldn't take him out, over somebody who's also risky.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm not high on Jefferson this week, but I'm higher on him than I am on Higgins. Yeah. And then John Zavala, better flex start. Man, a lot of DeAndre Swift questions this week. DeAndre Swift or Mike Davis full PPR?
That's a no-brainer for me. It's definitely Mike Davis.
Yeah, I'm not nearly as high on Mike Davis as other people. Yeah. Again, over his last 3 games, 11 points, 8 points, 8 points, and that's full PPR. I don't know why everybody thinks Mike Davis is a locked-in top 10 running back. But we know he's going to get the majority of the work. We don't know what DeAndre Swift's role is week to week. We don't know. So give me the guy who I know is going to get 15 touches, even if it is in a tough matchup. He's going to get some catches, and he always has a chance to find the end zone.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I know, like you said, I don't have Davis as a top 10 running back either, but he's part of a better offense in general. He's going to get guaranteed more touches.
Yeah.
Look at DeAndre Swift. Okay, last week, 13 carries. Before that, 6 carries, 9 carries, 14 carries. And that was his breakout monster game, right? 14 carries. And ever since then, it doesn't matter. Like Matt Patricia does not care, right? He just hates running backs in general. He's like Adam Gase in that sense. So, yeah, I can't start Swift. I don't even have him as a top 20 running back.
No. All All right, so just incredible. Do you think Jerry Jeudy will have a good game despite having an injury? I know he has like some kind of shoulder injury. Yes, I do. I don't think the shoulder injury is a big deal. And man, him and Drew Locker, they're locked in right now.
Locked in, absolutely. There's no other way to say it. He's locked in. Yeah, and I was big on Tim Patrick. Still kind of like Tim Patrick this year. He was their main guy, but now Jerry Jeudy's finally doing what we expected. Like he took that step. He's the guy now, right? And we know he's going to be one of the best receivers in the league for a long, long time. So, I'm not saying he's going to put up 100 yards every single week, but I think he's another guy, kind of like we talked about Allen Robinson. It doesn't look like he's trending towards not playing. So he might be a little banged up, but it's not a bad matchup. And I think you can trust Jeudy probably this week.
All right, here's one. Oh, man. Full PPR. DJ Moore, Josh Reynolds, Marvin Jones, Tim Patrick, AJ Green.
All right. I like these deeper league questions. This is good because this is where you're left to do the thinking, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's tackle those one by one.
Actually, that's what I'm going with, but go ahead.
Okay. Well, go ahead. No, I want to hear your thought on this because it's obviously something stuck, jump out to you.
For me, it's Josh Reynolds. I almost made Pierre spit out his coffee right there. For me, it's Josh Reynolds because he's been getting more involved. I know I would really like Josh Reynolds if Cooper Kupp didn't play. Cooper Kupp's going to play. It's Seattle. It's Seattle. I think I like all these wide receivers. I mean, you look at I don't like Marvin Jones at all this week. Tim Patrick, okay, but we've seen it's been mostly Jerry Jeudy. AJ Green, sure, maybe, but what's he going to get you? He's going to get you like 6 catches and 50 yards or something. I don't know. I mean, which isn't bad. I'm not saying that's bad. Right? That's pretty good. DJ Moore, just give me like the monster upside of Josh Reynolds against Seattle. That's how I'm looking.
All right. So here's, and I got a question the other day, something about Josh Reynolds, and my answer was never Josh Reynolds because he's just not a thing. He's never going to be a thing. He's how many years he's played now? He's not a thing. All right. And this is a team that even when they were at their peak, right, being one of the best offensive teams in the league, he was not a thing. Even when, Kupp would be out injured, he was not a thing. So he has been more involved lately. You're right. The last 2 games, 8 targets, 9 targets. But what did he come up with? 44 yards, 52 yards. His season high is 60 yards.
Yeah, but that was Chicago and Miami. Now we're talking about Seattle.
I know it's Seattle. Again, that's the only reason he's even on the radar. But that's the problem is that's like we're trying to find an excuse to make him a thing. Like, yeah, Seattle, but that's the only reason you'd even consider him. I'd rather have the guy who I think could actually be a decent contributor. So for me, that would be anybody else. But all right, let's go. What were the options again? AJ Green, Marvin Jones.
DJ Moore, Marvin Jones, AJ Green, Tim Patrick.
Okay, so I just talked about Tim Patrick. I have honestly him and DJ Moore right next to each other. I'm a fan of Tim Patrick. We saw that he's gone for 100 yards twice this year already, something Josh Reynolds has not done. And Drew Lock is getting better. I know it's garbage time, but still, he's at least finding receivers. And I can't, man. It's honestly it's close between Patrick and Moore for me. I'd say probably I would go with Patrick. But yeah, you can go either way.
Look, if you want to go safe and boring, go with Tim Patrick. But if you want to sit there on the edge of your seat all day while you're watching the game, sweating and stressing, with the potential for like a 50-yard touchdown and maybe a couple other catches, go with Josh Reynolds. Come on.
Oh, man, I can't remember the last time I saw Josh Reynolds go for a 50-yard touchdown. That's the problem. Because I've seen Tim Patrick do it. I haven't seen, and we've seen DJ Moore do it. But yeah, I do usually I like to shoot for upside, right? I don't like to play it safe and boring, especially when you're talking about a deeper league or a guy who's like your 3rd or 4th or your flex play. In your flex play, you don't want 5 points, right? You want somebody who could go for a big score. But to me, I would take the chance on Patrick doing that. But
all right, that's fair. All right, Justin Credible asks, I'm going to assume PPR, Duke Johnson, Justin Jefferson, or Robbie Anderson?
Tough one. That's a tough one. And you said PPR, full PPR?
He didn't specify, but I'm going to assume PPR. Let's see if he replies here.
Okay, so Duke Johnson, Justin Jefferson,
Robbie Anderson.
Robbie Anderson. I would Actually, that's pretty tough. Honestly, I would rather go Anderson than Jefferson based on the matchup because Anderson has that same ability I talked about with Justin Jefferson. I might I might go with Duke though. Honestly, I think he's guaranteed to have more touches, and it's a much easier matchup on defense.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm looking something up. I think it's Duke as well. And I definitely have Robbie Anderson over Justin Jefferson. When these teams played in week 2, Robbie Anderson had 9 catches for 109 yards. So it wasn't like Tampa Bay shut him down. But I still like Duke better. He's looking at 15 plus touches. He's going to get catches out of the backfield. It's half PPR, which makes me like Duke even more now in half PPR because it does, even though it's not a significant downgrade to the wide receivers, it is still a downgrade, right? So I like Duke getting 15 touches out of the backfield, especially in half PPR. All right. We got time for one more?
Yep.
All right. Adam Dew. John Brown or Christian Kirk? Ooh. Well, actually, we'll do 2 more because he asked a wide receiver one and a quarterback one. So let's do the wide receiver one first. This is an interesting one because I feel like these guys are both in great spots to have big games. So who do you like between John Brown and Christian Kirk?
Those are actually both pretty good options right there. So, I mean, the way Kirk has been rolling, you got to go with him, and he's not going to have the toughest matchup. You assume that Tre'Davious White, if he's healthy, which he's been banged up too, is going to get DeAndre Hopkins. Kirk is going to go against, I think, Levi Wallace, who's a good, he's a good corner, but Kirk, you've seen what he can do, right? He can take the top off the defense. John Brown can do that too, but he's not guaranteed the target share that Kirk has been, right? Brown is a little more boom bust. Now, of course, if you're a believer in the revenge game narrative, then, you go Brown against Arizona, his former team. But no, I would still go with Kirk.
Yeah, I have Kirk a little bit ahead, but something to think about with John Brown is Patrick Peterson is probably going to shadow Stephon Diggs. So I know a lot of people are like, oh, Stephon Diggs this week against Arizona. Well, if Patrick Peterson shadows him the way he did like DK Metcalf, remember what DK Metcalf did against Arizona, which was almost nothing. This could be a John Brown game, right? Because he just might be where Josh Allen looks a lot. But I would rather play Christian Kirk because, again, we've seen it with Kyler Murray. Those guys can connect on a deep ball. Unlike Josh Reynolds, those guys actually can connect on a 50-yard touchdown. We've seen it multiple.
There you go. That's exactly right.
All right. Then he also asks Carson Wentz or Drew Lock.
Look, as bad as Wentz has looked this year, you still have to go with Wentz. And it's kind of encouraging, he's got some weapons back, not counting Alshon Jeffrey, but Goddard, you said, is back. And then Miles Sanders being back, that helps him because that makes it so that the team, don't have to game plan just for the passing game, right? They actually have the threat of the run. So to me, it's Wentz.
Yes, I agree. Carson Wentz. All right. I think we got them all.
All right. Very nice. And big shout out to everyone who's still with us, asking those questions. I mean, we're here to help. That's it. Anything you got, even if it's trade related or you're looking for, head to next week, whatever it is, that's our goal, trying to help you out. Good luck, of course, in week 10. A lot of good games on the slate, but of course, the one you should be watching it's going to be Tua against Justin Herbert, battling it out for offensive rookie of the year. I think Herbert's got a, kind of lead on him, but you never know what could happen. But that's going to be a good game, right? Which game are you looking forward to?
I mean, definitely that one. 2 young future quarterbacks, of the league quarterbacks. That should definitely be an exciting game for sure. And the Chargers games always end up being like back and forth shootouts for some reason. So definitely,
I wouldn't mind
looking forward to that one.
I thought you were going to say future Hall of Famer, and it's okay. You go ahead. We can put Tua in the Hall right now. I don't mind that.
No, not quite at that level yet. But you never know.
You never know. But that'll be the game to watch. But all right, guys. So quick disclaimer before anything else. You need to watch our Endgame Live each and every Sunday, but also as soon as these games wrap up, we'll be putting in work, getting ready for your waiver wire pickups tomorrow. And then we're going to do start sit each and every week. If there's something else you wanted to see us do besides our start sit advice, our waiver advice, our live updates, let us know. Hit us up in the comments right now. Okay, appreciate all you watching. Let us know if there's something else we can talk about. We've talked about trade, strategies. If you watch the Queen's Gambit video, Chris did, talked about players to panic about, all sorts of things. We're going to do a little bit of dynasty content, especially as the year kind of winds up, and get you ready for the playoffs, because you need to be thinking playoffs right now. Okay. So we're going to get you ready for that too. But if there's anything you want to see, let us know. All right. That's it. Thanks for watching.